Why I say no is that I still have a vision of a certain life, a certain amount of money that takes, and an ultimately, looking towards retirement. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm getting that age now where it's on the horizon,
Yeah.
and so a lot of what I do is focus on when that happens.
Welcome to Agent Success Podcast. If you're a real estate agent looking to succeed in today's crazy market, well, you're in the right place. Each week, we talk with successful real estate agents willing to share their expert insights, trade secrets, and mindset that help them to succeed. There's no fluff, just straight to the point content that prioritizes one thing above all, your success. So without further ado, let's cut to the chase. Welcome. I am here with Mr. Dan Steinhour at 8Z Real Estate. How you doing, Dan?
Good. Thank you, too.
Good. Thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm excited to dig into the brain of Dan and how he's having success and what he's doing. You're thinking you don't want to dig into the brain of Dan, right?
I was thinking that shouldn't take too long.
Well, we'll explore all the caverns. How does that sound? So right out of the gate, tell us, you're working at 8Z?
8Z Real Estate, yep.
Okay. How long have you been there?
Been with 8Z for about a year and a half now.
Okay. What do you like about 8Z?
8Z is a company that absolutely cares about not only the client, but also the agents. And they have a lot of different programs that they use for their agents. They go above and beyond, and they make you feel like that you actually belong to a part of something. I've worked for...
Not just a number.
Yeah, and I've worked for other real estate companies, and there was always that piece kind of missing where you felt like you're a part of something that mattered.
Yeah.
And with 8Z, you absolutely do. You do.
So I did a transaction with 8Z recently, and I got an email as the loan officer. I received an email maybe like 3 or 4 days after closing saying, "Hey, it's a pleasure. How did everything go?" I was like I've literally never had a real estate shop reach out and ask how things went for me. It was really weird. But it was very refreshing, right? It was very refreshing for sure to know that, hey, they're concerned about the same thing I'm concerned about. And that is, how was my experience delivery, right? How did that experience work for the client and for all parties involved? And too often, I think we're too concerned with getting the transaction done and then having some sort of hierarchy tier within the transaction, right? Like, I'm not going to ask the title person how they thought it went because their title. I'm not going to ask the homeowner's insurance agent how, because they're homeowner's insurance. But to actually have a genuine concern collectively, thanks, it was a good transaction. Hope everything went well. I think that's very special. That's
Absolutely. Great. And we have a transaction coordinator. I'll give her a plug here, Diet.
Yeah.
Who is, she is above and beyond anything that I've ever dealt with before, and she is just fantastic. And so I give her credit for that.
For making you look good?
Absolutely. I mean, if it weren't for the team, for Diet, and for everything that's behind 8Z, my life would be a lot tougher.
So you've been there a year and a half, you said? Year and a half? How long have you been in real estate? Well,
I've been around real estate since I moved here in 1986. My father owned a real estate company here.
What company was that?
It was All Pro Real Estate,
okay.
Which
has that been closed down since?
It has. Okay. He passed away a few years ago, but he moved to California back in 2003, I believe it was, for health reasons. But so I've been around it for a long time, and I helped him out actually a lot when he was in business. And in the mid 90s, I went through a divorce and decided to quit my job, which I worked for UPS at that time, and wanted to get into real estate and eventually work with my father. And that was in 94, 95.
Okay.
So I worked for Merit Real Estate here in town for a couple of years. Did very well. And then my father talked me into going to work with him. And that didn't work out.
I can see the grin on your face. Oftentimes that's a challenge.
Loved my father dearly, but that didn't work out so well.
Yeah.
So then I spent 20 years in the car business. And
He drove you out of real estate.
well, my thinking at the time was I didn't want to go back with another company because of what it would do to our relationship. And we still had a great relationship.
Right.
So
Just didn't work out.
it didn't work out as far as working together.
So you get into the car business.
Got in the car business for 20 years, spent a good part of that as finance manager. And then, well, the first part of it was sales, but then finance manager and then sales manager for the last part of it. And then in 2015, I had an epiphany that I needed a change, and I loved real estate when I did it back in the 90s, and was on my way to work at the dealership one day, and this was in 2017, and I said, "Okay, God, just give me one more,
Yeah.
one more sign." That's what I was looking for,
Yeah.
and not 10 seconds later, my brother calls me from Poland, and he says, "Hey, I hear the real estate market is really good in Colorado Springs." So I said, "Okay." So I went to work, put in my 2 weeks notice.
That day?
That day, that minute, without even talking to my wife. My wife, she wasn't happy about it because change for her is not easy.
Yeah.
But I went in, put in my 2 weeks notice, and started real estate school the day after after my 2 weeks was up. I started the next day, and that was in July of 2017. And
Is your wife okay with you being a realtor now?
she is.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's
She
good.
is.
I didn't know if you've drugged that pain out or if it's worked out okay.
No, she's happy about it. Real estate has provided a lot of freedom that I didn't have, being in the car business, and especially when you're in management, your days are very long.
I was going to say you're there early and you end up. I see car lots open late and
Sometimes 15-hour days,
Ugh.
and a lot of that time was just time sitting there, not actual time working. But it was retail, so you had to be there.
You had to be there for when the time came.
Right.
Yeah.
And I liked what I did. I was pretty successful at what I did. But I really wanted to be in real estate.
Yeah.
So I did. Went to work for I interviewed at a couple of different real estate companies and ended up working for a big name company here in town, Remax.
Mm-hmm.
And great people, but the training that I received was pretty much non-existent. So I was there for about 6 months and almost went back into the car business because I was going broke.
I bet that was a rough 6 months life-wise when you tell your wife, "Hey, I'm quitting my job. Don't worry, it'll work out good. Don't worry, my brother from Poland called me. It's going to be fine."
True.
Yeah.
There was a lot of. My wife was suspicious that what I was doing was less than grand.
This is a midlife crisis, and I guess
Well,
at
yeah.
least you're not doing heroin and doing bad things. Real estate, if that's the worst that your midlife crisis gets, then that's okay, right?
It is. And then I joined a team after being in real estate for about 6 months. And
Did that help going from being a number to being on a team?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That was the pivoting point of my real estate career, is going to a team.
And so, with that, a lot of new agents when they first start as agents, there's always questions like what do I do to win? And what mistakenly I think happens is they go out and they chase the biggest split right out of the gate. Right, that's where am I going to get the biggest split?
Absolutely.
They're only going to charge me this or this.
Absolutely.
So you're saying a team was a big deal for you.
It absolutely was. They provided a lot of not just support, but leads as well. And I was quite good at converting leads into sales. So I really appreciated those leads. And then also just being able to call people and have somebody explain something to me anytime that I needed it. That was crucial for me. And
So here's what you say when this happens, or this objection, or here's how we
Sure.
explain this part of the contract, or whatever it is.
And that team, we did a lot of role playing.
Yeah.
We did a lot of practice, and all of it helped me tremendously.
Yeah.
So I give a lot of credit to that first team, and then I was with them for about a year.
Yeah.
Had some conflicts that didn't quite work out, so we went with another team, and backing up just a little bit.
But you went to another team. You didn't go solo.
I did not.
Okay.
And I like the team atmosphere. I really
Yeah.
do. And that's another thing about 8Z that I really like, is that it's a team atmosphere without actually being a team. And so
Gotcha.
I am
Okay.
solo.
You're solo, but it has the team environment.
Absolutely, 100%.
Huh.
And we still have meetings every Wednesday. We do a book club every Wednesday. That's kind of cool. But I joined the second team and was there for about a year and a half, and ended up being their number one producer in 2021. Of course, 2021 for everybody was fantastic.
Yeah, well, but make that a relative statement, because you did good in 2021. But if you were the number one producer for the team in 2021, that means everybody was having a good year. You just did it better. So whether it was a hard year or an easy year, that's quite the accomplishment, right?
Yeah. And, I worked my tail off, and I just did the basics. You were asking about what do you do new? And for me to really get busy in real estate, open houses was the number one thing for me.
Ooh, touch on that really quickly. So what I mean by that is, like, how frequently, or did you do them a certain way?
I did at least 2 a month, and sometimes Saturday and Sunday. I tended to like Saturdays a little bit better, and there was no real rhyme or reason for open houses, so it seemed.
Yeah.
There's a certain price range that I kind of tended to look for, but I did those, and I've done probably 8 double-sided transactions because of open houses where I sold their house and sold them another house.
Gotcha.
And then I've done quite a few transactions through open houses, gaining buyers as well.
So with open houses, so let's we talked about new agents right ahead of time. Like, what actions do the new agents, like what can they do? And if you were going to open houses, were you going to open houses, or have you done open houses that weren't your listings?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, and how does that go? Like meaning if it's not your listing, is the person that has the listing, are they on the team? Are they from another company? Are they just within your company? And how do you present yourself at the open house, knowing that you're not the agent? Like, can you kind of walk me through the idea of that?
Sure. A lot of times, I'd say half the time, they were not my listings, and half of those were not from my team or company. And so I would call an agent and say, hey, listen, I see you have this home here. And usually it was somebody that's been on the market for a couple of weeks,
Yeah.
And just ask, would you be open to me holding an open house for you? And, their signs would be in the yard and my card would be different. And the way I explained it was, I'm just helping out here and helping out this other agent. They weren't able to do it this weekend, so I'm covering for them.
Okay.
Is basically what I would say.
Did you try to target, like when you went to go, let's say there's 1,000 houses on the market, or maybe 500 or 300 at the time, but you have all these houses to choose from to call. Did you target a particular type of neighborhood, particular type of house, price point, age of house, or anything like that?
I did, and it was usually first time buyer type of house,
Okay.
because you would attract a lot of those buyers
Gotcha.
in that. And then I found that signs, you put up signs, lots of signs.
You don't put one sign up and wonder why nobody showed up?
No, you put at least 15, 20 signs up at least.
And I think that's a mistake I see a lot of times. I see one sign and then I don't see another. And so the way that I have heard it in the past, for you to say 15 to 20 signs really confirms that is that I should be able to see the next sign based off of where this sign's at, right? So I see this sign here and I can look 3 blocks down the road to see the next sign or whatever it is, right?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Did you ever have any agents, and I'm sure you did, but not want you to do an open house for them?
I have, and usually there's a circumstance behind it.
Okay. It's not just because they
maybe
don't like the way you do stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would try to target ones that appeared to be vacant or staged. Stage is best, but
Yeah.
Let me take that back. If it was not my listing or my team's listing, that's what I would try to target.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there'd be times when they wouldn't want you to hold the open house simply because of whatever.
That'd be a lot easier, like you say, if it was vacant or staged. It'd be considerably easier because then you're not dealing with family's got to be out.
Sure.
What do I do with a dog?
Sure.
All the other stuff that goes with that.
And then the other agents, if they have their clients are still in the home, maybe they don't know you, and they don't know.
Who's this other agent? From what company? I don't want them in my house.
Exactly. Yeah, of course they're going to do some research as soon as you say your name. But
So I'm going to jump to a couple quick questions here. Right now, where you're at right now, you're an independent agent. Have your goals in real estate changed compared to? I'm not talking like in the 90s. Compared to in 2017 to now, have your goals have they changed at all? Have they been altered?
no,
Interesting. Okay.
no, and why I say no is that I still have a vision of a certain life, a certain amount of money that takes, and an ultimately, looking towards retirement. I mean, I'm getting that age now where it's on the horizon, and so a lot of what I do is focus on when that happens. So.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I think that's a great answer because a lot of times people, when they start in real estate, compared to where they are now when they've been doing it for a while, those goals change a lot. So it's interesting to know that you went into it with a pretty clear vision of this is what I want.
Well, and you have to understand too, I did go into it kind of late. I mean, I was almost 55.
Well, and plus
when
you saw
I
your
got
dad.
into it.
You saw your dad retire, struggle, win, everything in between.
Sure, absolutely.
So maybe you learned those lessons, vicariously through him.
Actually, there's truth in that, and I saw the potential of what it could be if you worked hard, and working hard means going in every day and doing what it takes.
What does it take? What do you do every day?
Well, I have a rituals every morning. I get up usually at 4:30 in the morning, do a workout, do my breathing exercise.
I think I'm deep into REM at that point, so I can
do my meditations, and then I love to read, so I do a lot of reading and listen to a lot of podcasts, and
it's kind of how you start your day each morning.
it is. Okay. And I think that is probably the most important thing that I do each and every single day. And sometimes it feels like I haven't accomplished much at work during the day, but because that first hour and a half, 2 hours that I spend, I always feel like that I've done something for myself during that day.
I've spent entire days at work, and I know I've done something, and I was busy all day, but it doesn't feel like I did. I feel like there was too much more still to do. Having that start to your day is very important. I know a lot of people that do that. I'm inconsistent in that department, but I do have that first hour needs to go a certain way, and then that sets the tone for my day, right? Whether that's yoga or whether it's the way like you say, just meditation, whatever it is, that first hour is very important to set the tone. If you wake up and you're frantic, and I guess it makes it easier because I'm not waking children up to get to school at 7 a.m. And me trying to get them ready, me trying to get me ready, everybody running around the house like a bunch of crazy people, and then being like, "Oh, I'm ready for the day." All right, well, no, you're not ready for the day. You got to figure things out for an hour.
You're right. When you rush into your day from the moment that you start, it feels like that nothing gets accomplished.
So what? And this is kind of an interesting question. What's the number one mistake you think that new agents make? Because you have an interesting situation in that you started. You saw your dad, obviously, for years. You started in it, and then you left, and then you came back. So it's almost like you were a new agent twice.
Right. Absolutely. Right? I felt like a new agent when I came back.
Yeah.
100%.
So what do you see right now with a new agent that comes in? What you've learned, particularly this last, say, 7 years or so, what you've learned, what do you see that the agents are doing that's flawed in their business? New agents in particular.
I think something that I notice is that people have expectations of this being easy. And I hear a lot of people talk this, but obviously it's not easy. And, you see people on Facebook that, realtors that are living the good life, in Costa Rica, Hawaii, or whatever. And it just seems like that their life is nothing but getting up in the morning and cashing paychecks all day long. And that's not how it is. And I think that when you're younger, you have an advantage in that you get to learn everything early. And if you just put your nose, and we all know people like this, that they just put their nose to the grindstone. They don't sit back and wait for things to happen. They make it happen.
Yeah.
And I've seen some young people that are so successful at this, but they, in today's world with everything that's available, I mean, I just scratched the surface. I'm an old guy that is kind of stuck in the old ways in some ways, but with everything, and AI coming out is going to be a game changer, I think, for
it's going to alter the way a lot of stuff's done.
For a lot of the way things are done.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting in mortgages and in real estate to see what that does. Right now, all the AI test stuff that I do, it seems that, like, I ask it underwriting questions sometimes, right? I'll ask OpenAI. I'll ask like underwriting questions, and sometimes it does awesome, and other times it's like flat out wrong. But it like makes it sound like it's right. So I did one. I wanted it to write new listing descriptions. And so I thought I'd go through, and I was like, man, this is like maybe in like January or something when ChatGPT was like really like, getting going. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna have it rewrite. So I went out of town. I didn't go out of town. I searched for listings out of town, and I found some poorly, like average to poor written listings, right? And I ran them through ChatGPT, and they came out amazing, like just phenomenal. But then I went through and I said, okay, can it write a description for a new property that isn't that just make one up? So then I'd just find an address, and I would ask it to write a listing description, and most of the time it did really good. But what I realized was, like, my house hasn't sold in 16 years, 17, 18 years, something like that. So there's no data really for it to go on. There's no, Zillow didn't have it on there 3 years ago, or and so I don't know how ChatGPT gets its data, but when we ran, we said, hey, write a property description for this house, and it described the area beautifully, and it was so riddled with lies about my house. It talked about the most beautiful kitchen you've ever seen. It talked about all kinds, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to buy that house. That sounds amazing. Unfortunately, none of it's true. So it's kind of weird, like how certain it is. And then I'd ask it, underwriting questions. I say, does Fannie Mae allow gift funds on investment properties? And it would give me this very well written wrong answer. And
made it sound right though.
Oh my gosh, I was convinced. I was like, nope, it's obviously I don't know what I'm talking about, right? But I think it's got a lot of potential, and I think if you trained it in a specific art form of real estate, I think it could get very, very good. And you could put case law in there, you could put contracts in there, you could put. I think with all of that, I think it could do very, very good. But I don't think it's ever going to replace the human element. And the human element meaning I need to ask Dan how he feels about this house. Dan knows about this neighborhood. Dan grew up in this part of town. Dan sold a house last year over here, and then, and this is what I don't think it can replace that, right?
You're right.
That
the emotion.
Yeah, it'd be very difficult to fully replace a real estate agent. But I think it can be a tool that can seriously help the real estate agent.
I believe that's true, and we're with the Chat GPT, this is the first that we're seeing of it, the first. But AI has been around for in the wings for 10 years or so.
Hey Siri, what about this? Well, the closest one is there.
Exactly, but now they're expanding it to be able to do things that we can't even begin to imagine. In 20 years, everything that we know now is going to be just like different than 20 years was ago for us.
Well, they when Elon Musk, as an example, was talking about, years ago, was talking about what magic is, and it falls in line. I just read this a couple days ago. It falls in line perfectly with, I believe magic is like basically unlearned science. Like we don't understand the science on it yet, right? That's magic, or that's a miracle, or whatever you believe on that. And so he started giving some examples, as I read through this article that he had, and one of it was, 300 years ago, or 100 years ago, or 200 years ago, you would be burned at the stake for communicating with somebody on this magic device, right? And you're talking to them, and you could fly, and you're telling people, I can fly, I can go the speed of light, and I can, you know what I mean? I can create fire like this, and you say all these crazy things. They're like, Tim is crazy. like I don't know what train that kid fell off of, but he's nuts. But now it's science that we understand. And so in a way, you're a magician, because what you've done is you've taken that so-called magic and made it available, accessible to everybody. Just like accessing, I can talk to almost anybody in the world. I can go and I can look at a street camera in London and see, it's crazy. Like it's totally nuts, right?
Is.
But then you look at that with real estate and you say, what will real estate look like in 10 years, in 20 years, right? And when you look and say, like say a Matterport right now, we can put on VR goggles and I'm in the house and it's amazing.
Yep.
We've had that for several years. Where are we going to be in 5 years, in 10 years, when AI can build on itself and learn how to build that experience better for us, right? It's going to be pretty crazy.
It is, and that just makes you really start thinking about what could be, and it could go all kinds of different ways.
It makes you want to get rid of every Alexa app and phone app that you have,
Yeah, and it is crazy, and the technology, as quickly as it's moving, it seems to me it wasn't that long ago that the technology of the day was caller ID.
I remember my first caller ID box. It was a box that you got, and you plugged your phone line into it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my dad, when I was, this had to be in the late 80s, maybe. He worked for the state in the penitentiary, and he told me about this. So they built this new penitentiary in Canyon City, right? And he was telling me about it, like, they have all this these bulletproof glasses, and you got to go through these different layers, and it's all these safety features. And then he starts telling me about this phone system that they installed. And he's like, it's totally crazy. He's like, if somebody calls you, it tells you who's calling you. And I was like, no way. And he's like, oh, it's total. And then as I said, so anybody could call you? He's like, well, no, it's only anybody within the prisons calling you. Because this is before the actual caller ID. So if extension 6 was calling you, well, extension 6 is tied to Bill. So you see, oh, Bill's calling me. Oh, great. But I was still like, oh man, that's freaking crazy. Because,
I know it was technology at its finest.
It used to be, even call waiting was a big deal because you'd call somebody, you'd get a busy signal, right?
Oh, when I was real young, we had party lines. We lived in Guam.
Oh yeah,
and we had party lines, and as kids, you could hear when somebody was dialing out because you get this little like ring in your phone.
Yeah,
and it wasn't a full out ring. You just hear the like, ding, and so you'd pick it up real quietly. You kids, get out of there.
Yeah, so that's now you look at that and say, okay, well, 15 years ago, where were we, right? We were beyond dial-up, so we got the high speed, which high speed was not very high speed. It was very slow speed, but it was beyond dial-up. So if you remember AOL, you've got mail.
Still have an AOL.
Yeah. I can always tell the age of my clients based off their if they got an AOL, a Yahoo, or a Gmail. You're just kind of like that's like that's like the progression of the of the email, right?
You're right.
So it's it is interesting to think where are we going to be in 10 years or 15 years, and what new technologies. I mean, the other part of that that's kind of crazy to me is you look like in the 60s, and we put somebody on the moon in the 60s, and then we didn't go back to the moon for a really, really long time. And space travel really dropped. And at the time in the 60s, I imagine look at the cars you had in the 60s compared to the cars you had in the 40s, the vehicles, right? You had a 67 fastback Mustang was considerably better than a 1940 Chrysler, right? So you look at that, and then you look at you're putting people on the moon. Their telephones, and you got they're experimenting with laser weapons in Vietnam, and you got to think the technology excitement that had to be happening then, and then then we get into the 80s and we have the 1984 Mustang that was basically a crappy Corolla.
biggest turd.
It basically, we went backwards in technology, it felt like. I mean, we ended up with cable TV, and most of the time the channels worked, but it just feels like we stagnated. So it makes me wonder right now, are we on the verge of amazing stuff, or are we on the verge of almost a stagnation, I think we're on the verge of amazing stuff, but I hope we don't get another 84 Mustang.
Yeah, me too. And I think a lot of it does depend on how AI goes, how the future of any true sales go. Car sales, home sales. And you're right, people still want that personal touch. Mm-hmm. They want somebody to be able to bounce questions, ideas off of. They still need somebody to negotiate for them.
Well, look at like Carvana, right? Where it's like almost a personless car purchase, and they'll deliver it to you.
It is personless.
Yeah, but aren't they having a harder time than a traditional dealership right now?
I think that from what I've heard, and Carvana has only been around for a few years, mm-hmm. and they came about pretty much after I got out of the business. But I've heard that they're doing quite well for some people. There are those people that absolutely hate sales.
Yeah.
And they don't want to ever feel like
I want this car in this color. I found it. They'll ship it to me.
That's right. Yeah. And they already have a certainty of what it is they want. With most of these cars that they're selling, there's not a lot of risk.
Yeah.
But what they don't get is to go in and touch it and feel it, and like you said, get somebody else's opinion of what.
Like, hey, I've been selling Toyotas for 9 years. This new model does this. I guess you could research all that on the internet, but
you could, but to actually touch and feel.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll compare that to the iBuyer platform in real estate, which I think has all but collapsed for the most part. That massive buying, flipping, selling, will buy your house before you leave. That fit a very big need in real estate, but I feel like I shouldn't say I feel like, I know that a lot of them have shut down. A lot of them have overpromised and underdelivered. And just that actual human being there is a very big deal.
Absolutely. And you're right, a lot of them have gone to the wayside. We saw it with Zillow. They were buying like crazy, and they were buying them for more than we could sell them for.
Yeah.
And
so get rid of your agent, we'll pay you 5% more.
So, there for a very short while,
Yeah.
probably 8 months or so, that was really a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But then they were their own demise.
Well, yeah, but when you look at that, though, the other part of that is interesting is, as a real estate agent, first off, you're not playing with $100 billion, in test marketing stuff. Like you know your market and you're working really hard, but you don't know, is this going to be like, is this the Uber that takes out taxi cabs, right? Is it, like, what am I looking at here? Do I need to jump on this, or is this something that's going to die? You don't know. So you're like, man, you're just swinging. Yeah, I hope this works.
Sure. And that's actually a very successful company. I mean, and you're right. What they did, they ended up spending a lot of money that came out of somebody's pocket.
Yeah.
But then they rebounded, and in different markets, selling leads has always been their big thing. And even when that went away, I mean, they still produce in a market that a lot of other companies cannot.
Yeah.
So
I think the client experience, as far as web goes, the client experience on Zillow is very good.
You're right. I mean, I think even us as realtors, I look at Zillow all the time for different locations. For my
It's a fantastic tool.
$50 million homes out in California that I'm going to own.
But at the same time, you don't. What I think a lot of agents need to remember is you don't need to feed the monster, but you can feed on the monster. Meaning, you can take that data, use it for all the good you want, but it doesn't mean that you have to pay them money. It doesn't mean you have to be buying their leads. It doesn't mean you have to be doing all that, right?
You're right. You're absolutely right. I haven't paid for leads for a long time, and actually, that's not true. I recently dipped a little bit into Facebook marketing.
How did that go for you?
Not good at all.
Oh, really? So it used to be good. I've heard that over this last few years it has been very challenging.
Yeah.
It's become more expensive as well.
It has, and Facebook, it's not cheap. And
Zuckerberg's buying half of Hawaii for himself, so he needs that money, Dan.
Hey,
Yeah.
more power to him.
He's got to buy that native land so he can, raise his 2 kids, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know. It's. I guess we all have different goals.
Yeah. He's not well loved down there, right? I've heard.
No.
No, just because he's gobbling up a lot of stuff that he shouldn't be gobbling up, and then leaving it. You can't come visit this land. This is my land.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah.
Well, that's too bad. You would hope that he would spends his money for the good of humanity.
Silly things like let's desalinize the water and pump it into the middle of Africa or something. Give those people water, or let's not fund wars. Like, you got billions of dollars. You can do some cool stuff. Let's get wild and actually have real free speech. Why not?
Yeah.
Could do some good stuff. Let me ask you a quick question that we got slightly off topic there, but I enjoy talking to you, Dan. So I enjoy you going along with me on that. One quick question here is, what do you not do in real estate right now that you should be doing? If you had to pick one, because there's probably 5 or 6 that most people could think of, but what is like the big one? Like I really should be doing this.
It's funny you asked that because we were just talking about this at work. And for me, it's getting back to the basics.
Mm-hmm.
Right now in my real estate career, this year, I mean, I had a fantastic first half of the year. And it's actually afforded me some time that I've never had before. Time to spend with, like my sister and her and I went and had a long week together in Florida. Went and visited an old Navy buddy that I hadn't seen for 30 years. We're going on vacation in 2 weeks actually to Washington State. But what it gave me was that freedom to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And my business right now, this exact moment, is, I mean, I've still got stuff going on, but it's not the usual.
Yeah.
But that's, a lot of it is because I haven't been doing the basics.
Right, so you did the basics, had success for years. You got afforded the opportunity to maybe take it a little easy because you're having some financial success. But then you realize, maybe I need to be making those calls every day.
True. And when we get back from vacation is when it's time to get back to the basics. Start doing my open houses.
Mm-hmm.
Working in the car business here for 20 years, I know a lot of people in that business, and every time I walk into a dealership, it doesn't matter which one it is, I know somebody there.
Oh, really?
Always. And so I get a lot of business from the people I know in the car business.
Yeah.
And the last couple of years, I've really slowed down in doing that.
Going and visiting those people
Mm-hmm.
and seeing those people.
Yep. I still do for my favorite dealerships. I still go in there and say hello.
But these are the true basics that you're talking about. It's not, I'm the superstar basketball player, so I don't have to practice my dribbles, right? You need to be doing the dribbles.
Absolutely. You need to be doing them every day. Something that's going to be beneficial to business.
So I got two last questions. Number one, if you were a loan officer for a week, what would you do different? Like, where's a pain point that you see in lending? What would you do different than what most loan officers, what you see most LOs doing?
It's funny for me through the years with loan officers. I think I'm kind of hard on loan officers because my expectations are very high.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest expectation that's unmet for me is communication. And I think that's the biggest failure for not just LOs, but for realtors, for anybody who's in customer service or sales, is the lack of communication. That's one thing that for myself, if I was asked, what do I do better than most, it'd be communication.
So an LO needs to communicate better. Are you saying with you as the realtor or with the client or just in general, that overall communication of what's going on?
I think the overall communication of what's going on in a timely manner. And again, I'm a little bit,
you think you're hard on LOs, but you're not. We've done business together before. You're actually quite pleasant to work with.
well, I think everything is pretty clear cut and dry when it comes to what needs to be done, but it's it's picking up the phone, and your company does a fantastic job of constantly, getting me emails of what I never have to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's very important, is just being aware, all parties being aware at all times of everything.
What's actually happening.
So
last question, Dan, is you've been doing this for a while now. You have realized it can be stressful. You've worked really hard. What does Dan do to unwind? How do you relax to where you're not in that constant grind of real estate?
I spend a lot of time with my wife and daughter. We have a 19-year-old daughter. We do a lot of hiking.
Mm-hmm.
We hang out a lot. We travel. We go on vacations as a family.
See, when I asked that question, you got a big smile. So that means you enjoy that. That's good.
We love to travel.
Yeah.
And it's all in the United States. We don't do any overseas traveling.
Yeah.
But we just love experience. We love to hike wherever we go. Usually it's to the ocean. Maine is one of our favorite destinations.
Maine. Oh.
Yeah, we've been there probably 8 times.
Okay, over on the Atlantic side. Now, being here from Colorado, you basically have 2 main areas that you go for the beach. Obviously, California or West Coast, right, Pacific, and then maybe Florida. I don't hear a lot of people going to Maine to go to the beach.
You'd be surprised. There's a beach there called Old Orchard Beach. And it's actually where JFK's parents met.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And it's just everything that a seaside town, on East Coast that you would imagine, like when I think of East Coast seaside towns, I think of like Coney Island.
Yep.
But this is very much like that. 7 miles of beach, sandy beach, that is just beautiful.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Huh. I guess that's what you figure out when you travel. I mean, North America is a very huge place, right?
It is.
It's very large. You can get lost here. I talked to a guy from, I forget where he's from, somewhere in Europe, and he had moved to Texas. And they decided a long weekend they were going to drive to Yellowstone. And so he told me this about a decade ago. He's like, yeah, we're going to drive to Yellowstone. We live in South Texas, right? So he said, we didn't really, we saw the map. We just straight up, basically, right? We start driving. He said after the first day, we didn't make it out of Texas. He said we were in North Texas at the end of the day. He said this is crazy. He's like I could have gone through 3 countries in Europe, and I'm still in the same state. Granted, on one side or the other, but holy cow, totally different world too. And
that's funny you say that. 2 years ago, we drove to Washington State.
Mm-hmm.
And, on the map, I'm seeing Montana and Idaho and eastern Washington and, looking it up and seeing all these cool places. And then once you start driving for 8 hours, yeah, it's no fun. So I told my wife then, I said, we're never going to do this again. I said, if we do road trips, it's going to be in Colorado.
Yeah.
And anything outside of Colorado, unless it's, like Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Then we're flying.
We're hitting the airplane. Yeah.
So we're going to go back to Washington State because when we were there 2 years ago, we felt like we didn't even get to see anything because we spent 6 days on the road.
Oh, yeah.
Driving.
Yep. So now you're going to fly there. You'll be there in 3 hours and then be able to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, awesome. Well, Dan, thank you very much for being on the episode. I think we got a lot of kind of insights of what you do, what you think other people should be doing, the back to the basics and actually working every day, as mind-boggling as that sounds. It does take a lot of work to be in real estate. So thanks a lot for being here, man.
Well, thank you very
much. Appreciate
it.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
That wraps up another episode of Agent Success Podcast. Remember, you can find new episodes each week at agentsuccesspodcast.com. We hope you found the insights and best practices shared today truly valuable. And if you did, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Remember, your success is a journey of learning and improvement. So let's keep hustling, thriving, and learning. Until next week, this is Tim Chase.